it's Nina with Walla Stamping. Thank you for joining me today. This is the project that I'm going to be sharing with you, and I am calling this a box and a card all in one. The reason why I'm naming it that is because, of course, you can see it is a box, but when you open it up on the inside, I have a happy birthday greeting on there. So I feel like this can serve two purposes. First of all, it's a gift box. You can put whatever it is you're wanting to put in there to give as a gift, and secondly, it's got your little sentiment on the inside to tell the person happy birthday or whatever you decide to stamp on the inside. I've done some stamping around the outside of the box to be the decorations. You could also use some designer series paper and just cut the appropriate size rectangles and glue those onto the outside, but I really wanted to do some stamping. And then of course I have this little decorative medallion stuck to the top. So the paper that you're going to need to make this box, first of all, is a piece of thick Whisper White cardstock. This is 10.5 by 8. You'll need a second piece. This is for the greeting on the inside. It's 2.5 square. Then you're going to need a piece of Daffodil Delight. I have a kit. Let me bring this in. I've got a kit here for you, and in order for your name to be entered into the drawing to win the kit, go over to my blog at wallastamping.com, make a comment underneath the post for this project, and your name will go into the drawing for that kit. Then I have a couple of pieces here of the Pear Pizzazz, 3.5 by 3.5 and 3.25 by 3.25. Now the inks that I'm going to be using today are Daffodil Delight, Tangerine Tango, and Pear Pizzazz. The adhesives that you'll see me using will be my Fast Fuse. I'm going to have a bone folder. And the stamp set that I'm going to be premiering today, let me move these things out of my way, is going to be the Daisy Delight Bundle. This has been so popular that it's actually sold out a couple of different times, but it's back in stock now and it's available to you. And this bundle includes the punch as well as the stamps, and I just think this is probably one of my favorites. It's so easy to use, and there's lots of different ways that you can create flowers with this punch, and using either the stamp that coordinates with it or just coloring your petals with different colors of ink. I'm going to also use an additional stamp set. This is Special Celebrations. There is a 2-box set of this stamp set, and I love that because it is everything for all kinds of occasions. I'm going to be using the Happy Birthday and the For My Friend stamp today. First thing that we'll want to do is get our scoring done. So I'm going to grab my Simply Scored scoring tool and put my Whisper White in with the 10.5 inch side across the top. Then we're going to score this at 2 inches, 5, 7, and 10. Then I'm going to turn it half a turn, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches, and then turn my paper 180 degrees to the opposite side and score it 1/2 and 2.5 again. So the scoring is really easy on this box. Now let me point out to you, as you can see here, there is a small score line here, which is the 1/2 inch. So this is going to end up being the lid of your box. This will be the back, the bottom, and the front panel of your box. So there's a few portions that we need to cut away. All of this section right here needs to go. So mark that out and mark that out. Then these little rectangles here, and both of these need to go. So let's go ahead and get those trimmed away. I'm going to start out by just cutting straight up this score line, which is the second one from the right. And then I'm going to come across here, which is the second score line from the bottom, and just cut that rectangle away. Then I'm going to cut straight up this score line and this one and cut that small piece away. Now right here I'm going to want to angle this because this tab we're going to leave and it will get tucked to the inside of the box. So you want to cut away a little bit of a wedge out of that to make all the moving parts that are going to be on the inside of this box workable. And as you can tell, I went ahead and cut that other rectangle out as well. I'm going to cut this at an angle here. All right, so I'm going to cut straight up this other score line on this side and cut across this one, get rid of that large rectangle, cut at an angle here and get rid of this rectangle, cut at an angle here and get rid of this rectangle. Okay, so let me clean up just a bit. So at this point, this is what you're going to have. Oopsie, I almost forgot that. I'm going to cut that at a little bit of an angle too, because that's going to get tucked in. So now we have some more score lines that we want to cut, because these 4 squares in the corner are going to end up being our tabs that is going to hold our box together. So I'm just going to cut straight up this score line and stop at that first horizontal. Do the same thing over here. Then I like to fold the part that I'm not going to be cutting out of the way. And these little tabs, I'm just going to cut a little wedge out of each of those. And again, it's just to make everything work better in the box when you are assembling it, so that there's not going to be anything sticking up in the way or making your box look lopsided. Then I'm going to turn it around to this side, and basically I'm doing the same thing again. So when you're done with all of your trimming, this is what you're going to have left. Now what we're going to do now is some stamping. I'm going to use a Post-it note, and as you can see, you have this one square, which is basically in the center of your box. So this is going to end up being the bottom, which means all of these rectangles here will be your sides. You're going to want to cover up the bottom of your box with your Post-it note, and I'm going to be using all 3 colors of my ink at this point. So I'm going to grab those and get them open. Alright, so I'm going to dip my stem into my Pear Pizzazz, but I don't need the whole stem inked up because it's too tall for this. I don't want to really stamp past this score line here. So I'm just going to stamp down here and use approximately 1/2 to 1/4 of the stem each time that I stamp. And I'm going to put all of these stems kind of going different directions and at different heights, just like that. Then I'm going to take the outline image of my flower and put that into the Tangerine Tango, and I'm going to stamp on top of each of these stems. And if some of my flowers overlap, I am okay with it. If you don't like that look, then you can stamp your flowers in a way so that that won't happen. Then I'm going into my Daffodil Delight, and I'm filling in the center of each of these flowers. Now, if you have never used a stamp set before that allows you to do double stamping on one image like this, where I stamped the outline of the flower and then filled it in with the second stamp, you are going to absolutely love this stamp set, because it allows you to create a project that looks very detailed and looks like you have taken a lot of time and effort to make this project, when in fact it's pretty darn easy. So I'm just going to continue all around the box on each of these 4 sides, stamping the stems and the flowers and getting those all stamped out. And when I've completed it, I'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. So as you can see, I've got all my little flowers stamped out here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my bone folder at this point and make sure that all of my score lines are folded and burnished, and I have a really nice, sharp, crisp edge on each of those. I'll use my Fast Fuse and apply the adhesive close to the score line and then out closer to the edge of these little tabs. So I'm just going to assemble my box. and tuck these little sides in, and as you can see now, this is why I cut those at an angle, so there wouldn't be anything in the way of being able to close this box. So there is our box completed. Let's go ahead and stamp our sentiment for the inside of the box and get that put together. I'm gonna stamp the happy birthday first. I'm going to use my grid paper to help me make sure that I'm getting these straight. Stamp this one more up toward the top. And then the for my friend, I don't want the for on there. All I want is my friend. So I'm going to take the sticky part, I've got ink all over me. I'm going to take the sticky part of my Post-it note and I'm going to cover up the word for. Then I'm going to ink that up. Then I know that the word for is not going to get stamped, and I just want the my friend centered in here as best as I can possibly get it. So I'm going to have to kind of fudge over to the left just a little bit to make sure that I get that centered. And it came out fine. So that is something that you may want to pay attention to when you're doing your stamping, or if you want to leave the word for on there, you certainly can. Then I'm going to move this out of the way. Let me grab my Big Shot and we'll get this cut out. I'm going to be using my Layering Squares framelit dies. I'm going to use the very largest on the 3.5 by 3.5 inch piece, and the next to the largest on the 3.25 by 3.25 inch piece. Just get that run through and cut both of those squares out. To adhere the happy birthday my friend to my pear pizzazz, I'm just going to use my snail to do this with. Get that centered up. Add some more snail to the back, and then I'll go ahead and place this on the inside of my box lid. Now the next thing that I want to do is use my 1/2 inch circle punch, and right here in the center of the front panel I want to punch half of that circle out. And my purpose for doing that is so when somebody wants to open this box, they actually have a little place to stick their thumb or finger in order to pull that lid open. You don't have to do that, it just makes it a lot easier for the person receiving the box. I'm going to go ahead and get my leaves stamped on here. So first I'm going to do the outline image in my Pear Pizzazz, and the way that I'm doing this, oopsie, I didn't stamp that very clear. Let me turn that over and start again. I'm going to stamp the leaves 2 at a time, or in pairs I guess I should say. I'm going to take my Pear Pizzazz shimmer ribbon and I'm going to cut a couple of pieces, and each one of these are approximately 3 to 3.5 inches. I'm going to use my fast fuse and put just a little piece right on the end of each of these pieces of ribbon. Then I will curve it over and make a little loop shape, stick that together. Add another little bit of my fuse to the inside, and then whichever leaves I see that I don't like as well as the rest, because this one I didn't stamp very well, I'm just going to cover it up with that. So it's add a little bit of dimension to the card or the box top, as well as another layer of texture. And it can cover up boo-boos if you make any. So I've got both of those right there. Let me grab my cardstock and my daisy punch. The way that I like to punch this out is I actually like to lay this punch on the table on its lid, because it is a pretty good size punch, and I just feel like I can do a better job punching if I can come from on top and use the bottom of my hand to punch that out and use more pressure that way. It's just easier for me. You can hold it in your hand to punch if you want to, but I like doing it this way when it's a larger punch. I feel like if there's someone who likes to do crafting, but maybe they have issues with their hands, such as arthritis or something, this could possibly be an alternative way for them to use a punch and not hurt their hands so much. Now I've got these punched out. I'm actually going to use all 3 colors of my ink again. So I'm going to get those open. Or actually, I take that back. I'm only going to be using the Pear Pizzazz and the Tangerine Tango. Now I've got my sponge daubers. I'm going to dip into the Pear Pizzazz first, and I'm going to put this color in the center of each of my daisies, and I'm going to move that around in a circular motion, but I'm going to make sure that I come out onto the petals themselves, maybe a 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, just to have that color out there like that. And I'm going to do all 3 of these flowers same way. I'm going to take my second sponge dauber and dip that into my Tangerine Tango. I'm going to put most of the color just on the very outer tips of these petals and go all the way around each one. And that color is going to be pretty dark and vibrant out there. Then I'm not going to re-ink my dauber. I'm just going to lightly add some more color down the petal toward the inside, but stopping just shy of where that Pear Pizzazz ink ends. Now that I've got all of my flowers inked the way that I want them to be, I'm going to use the back of a paintbrush or something like that in order to do some curling on these flowers. Now, I've got my aqua painter, and I'm choosing to use that because it has a large, rounded, smooth surface. But I do have a couple of paintbrushes that I could use as well, but this isn't quite as big as this, and that's why I'm choosing to use my aqua painter. So for the first 2 flowers, I'm going to actually turn these upside down like this, and I'm going to take that round, smooth surface, and I'm going to drag that with some decent pressure across the top of each of these petals, drawing it toward me, and that is going to make those petals curl up just like this. Then I'm going to flip it back over and take that end and push down in the center and just go around in circles. So that will give my flower a really cool looking shape. So I'm going to do the second one the same way. For the last flower, I'm going to do that differently, where I'm going to leave it with the color side up facing me, and I'm going to basically just curl the very outside portion of these petals. I'm not going to drag all the way in toward the center like I did on the other 2. Then I'm going to flip it over upside down to do the center. And you know how a flower's center usually has a domed or raised surface. That's the reason I'm doing it this way. Let's go ahead and get our flower built. So first of all, I'm just going to use a dimensional to stick this flower down, and I'm going to put one right there in the center and stick my first petal down, or my first flower rather. Then I'll use some multi-purpose liquid glue. You could use another dimensional if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter so much here, but I'm just going to use my liquid multi-purpose glue. And I'm going to stick this second one down, but then I'm going to use my dimensionals. And because I want the center of this flower to kind of stick up, I'm going to use 3 of them, and I'm going to stack one right on top of the other, removing that adhesive backing in between each layer. Then I'll stick this one on top. So then you have quite a bit of dimension to that flower. Now I have my gold faceted gems. I'm going to take one of these and stick that right in the center of my flower. You could leave this off altogether if you do not want that little bling going on, but I love bling. So anyway, that's why I do it to mine. Now on the back, I'm going to use dimensionals again, one in the center, and then I'll put one on each of the 4 corners. and then stick this to the top of my box. Now when you get ready to put this on your box, just take a look at it, turn it, decide which corner you want your ribbons to come from. And I think that I would like mine to come from the top left. Get that centered in the top of your box and adhere it down. So your box is now complete. You've got your beautiful lid. When you open it up, you have your happy birthday greeting. So there's the two boxes that I've made for you. I'm going to have links to all of the featured supplies that I used with this project listed in the description box below the video. So be sure to check that out. I've also prepared a printable instruction sheet for you. It's going to give you all of the dimensions as well as the directions for this project. Thanks for stopping by today. I really hope that you enjoyed this project, and if you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget, subscribe to my channel. Check that little bell over there so that you'll get alerts, and that way you won't miss any of my paper crafting tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.